What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. The Earthmaster here with an update video on this finally Friday, April 15th, 2022, about 11:32 a.m. California time. Latest quake shows a 2.1 on the earthquake 3D globe there, right around the New Madrid zone. Let's go ahead and back out of California real quick. Show you guys this earthquake striking in here into the southeastern Missouri zone. New Madrid zone, of course, sits within this area right here, a very seismically hazard area. For a good portion of the country right here around Arkansas, Tennessee, and the surrounding states. This earthquake here came in at 0.1 miles below the surface, a very shallow earthquake here at the New Madrid zone. Hopefully this thing doesn't decide to give us a show this year. It's been a while. It's been building up for a little bit since the early 1800s, since the last major earthquake in that region. It has been reviewed, and the depth stands at 0.1 on the kilometer. I haven't seen a shallow earthquake like that in that region in quite some time. Let's go ahead and check out the west coast here. First off, around the Southern California area and the Tijuana region, Baja California, where they've seen a 4.6 earthquake come in last night, shaking things up across the region here. This was felt pretty broadly across parts of Southern California, all the way up to Long Beach, it looks like, and areas, of course, into the Baja California region. Just some light to moderate shaking right around the epicenter, and some weak shaking further up north. So not a big quake, but it is kind of an unusual quake because we haven't seen too much in terms of earthquake movement along this fault system. Now it's going to be the Coronado Bank Fault. Coronado, there we go, Coronado. I think that's correct. Haven't seen too much movement on this specific fault system. It does extend down here. Just off the coast of Tijuana, and ends roughly within this area where we seen that 4.6 strike last night. Now, this specific fault system right here, Coronado Bank Fault Zone and Palos Verdes Fault, it is a right lateral normal faulting, and it's about 90 kilometers in this area, and the further south, or further north, I should say, about 180 kilometers. So it's a pretty lengthy fault system. We haven't really had too much in terms of recent activity, roughly about 2 mm per year on the slip rate. Not a huge amount, but there's no specific earthquake history in this region. Essentially continuous with the Palo Verdes fault zone, rupture extending from one named section across to another section might be possible. Okay, so yeah, there's really no history of when the last major rupture was on here, or the intervals of earthquakes along this fault system. Now, is it possible that this could be some forequaking? Possibly. Looking at the aftershock sequences, we've only seen one aftershock here following that 4.6, 2.1. So this is some deep earthquake activity out here as well. One map was showing that it's on this Coronado fault, which extends down here, and then another one was kind of pointing towards the San Diego trough. We'll see if that gets updated or not, but right now it's looking like it's right there on the Coronado Bank Fault here that extends down southward. But either way, some interesting activity occurring down here. We have seen a little bit of a subsequent movement up here in Southern California with some activity off of the main fault systems here. We're not really looking at any specific faults that these earthquakes are striking on. It's off of the Elsinore fault and off of the San Jacinto fault zone. So just kind of monitoring the activity pretty closely here in Southern California. This, always could point to something bigger, right? We could have an earthquake maybe tonight. You never know. It's just good to be on guard here with this type of unusual activity off the coast there and into a kind of an odd area. Working our way up into the rest of the state, some movement around the Ridgecrest area. Nothing specific going on there except for some microquake fill-ins, and also a little bit of activity here in the valley. Looks like outside of the Newman area of California, 14 miles deep for this earthquake here. That's a really deep earthquake for this area of California, if this stands true. It's automatic status, so it has not been reviewed yet. So we'll keep an eye on that, see if it gets reviewed. But definitely seen some deep movement in Southern California recently, over the past few months. and just kind of odd. But definitely some major adjustment going on down there with the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate interaction. Up in Northern California, some movement up here outside of Redding, and also up here. We've seen an earthquake here yesterday, 2.8 near MacArthur, California. That one pretty shallow. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet, folks. Not a whole lot going on. One earthquake here into the Yellowstone region just within the last hour. Let's go ahead and pull up the Yellowstone map, see if we got any swarming going on. There's quite a bit of chat about. I know the live stream is down. I accidentally pulled the plug here. Accidentally, because I was trying to get some stuff set up here on my end, and it ended the stream. But that's okay. We're going to get back up. Yeah, not a whole lot going on currently at Yellowstone. There's that little earthquake. It looks like it came in here within the last hour or so, listed on the map. It's going to be that 0.6 here in the red, down here in the red circle. Up here, I should say. Okay, looking at the rest of the country, aside from that new Madrid earthquake out here, which is a 2.1, some movement up in Oklahoma and Kansas. Texas pretty quiet today. Only one earthquake out there in the Lone Star State, 2.9. And eastern part of the country, pretty quiet. Puerto Rico, Caribbean Plate, all remains relatively quiet. I haven't seen any further subsequent large-scale movement in the South America region. Just 5.3 into the Peru-Chile Trench. This one a little bit further upstream than this deeper activity we've been seeing. So might want to watch this bend right here. It is a major slip rate accumulator. A lot of stress built up in a short amount of time for some large earthquakes in the area of Chile. So watch that zone pretty closely, especially with that upstream movement occurring following the deep activity. Hawaii is another big story today. We got some quite a bit of movement kicking up here into the Big Island, where we've seen, let's go ahead and bring the magnitudes here a little bit. We've seen a 4.6 earthquake strike down here into the area of the southeast region of the Helena slump area. 4.6 at 19 miles below the surface. Quite a few 2s in there as well. We even had a 4.3 prior to that 4.6. So a little bit of uptick. I would actually call this a pretty good size uptick in movement here along the southeast region. Now looking at this activity here, does show about 34 earthquakes or so within the region of the southeast area of Hawaii. There was a statement put out here by the USGS on Kilauea, which still sits at an orange and watch level. The U.S. Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory recorded these earthquakes this morning. Looks like at least it hasn't affected anything on the Kilauea volcano specifically yet. No major adjustments or any type of increased flow or inflation. This earthquake activity appeared to be part of the seismic swarm under the area, which is this area right here, since about 2019. And in fact, earthquakes have been recorded in this area since about the 1960s. And there's a pretty cool article in regards to this activity, which is very typical. It just continues for quite a while, well, since the 1960s. So we'll keep an eye on it. Any type of major adjustment way down there below could have adverse effects here towards the volcanoes. We'll keep an eye on it pretty closely. Let's see here. But either way, some interesting movement taking place here. Western portion, Pacific Ring of Fire, very quiet, folks. Not a whole lot going on. Some movement and swarming back around Taiwan and Japan. And a couple spotty earthquakes throughout the Indonesia, Java Trench area, and the Papua New Guinea area. A couple 5s and 4s out there. No major deep movement to report along the Fiji area. Some movement in China last night, and a little activity out here around Italy earlier as well. But, well, it looks like South Sandwich Trench here had a 5.1. That looks as though it was a little bit ago, earlier this morning. Up here in Alaska, some movement kicking up here in the Gulf. Got a 2.0, and then a 1.6 as well. A little bit of activity lighting up here within the last hour. Either way, I think we're about ready to see some major adjustment out here along the North American Pacific Plate boundary, whether it's going to be something up here in Alaska or the North American, or the West Coast, I should say. Things just kind of pointing towards that, folks, with the inland movement, the activity around the New Madrid zone. All this plays a part here in what's going on out here along the West Coast. So be on guard, specifically West Coast area. Tremor activity last night has not shown anything. In fact, it's remained relatively quiet. Look at that, no tremor. But then again, I don't know if this is trustworthy, folks. I can only show what is provided to the public here. I don't have access to the specific instruments monitoring this activity there along the Cascadia. Volcanic seismicity map here at Mount St. Helens. We will check those. At least one volcano out as we zoom in. Nothing being reported there by the PNSN network. That's kind of why I like to go over here to the recorded graphs to see for myself, see what's going on. And see if we can get this going on here. A lot of solar weather activity to discuss as well. There's definitely some swarming going on there at Mount St. Helens. Earthquake activity this morning. Some within the last hour as well. These red, black, blue spikes all indicative of earthquake activity there at Mount St. Helens. There's yesterday's movement. So definitely some activity kicking up there. Nothing big, I believe, aside from this one. Most of the activity we're seeing earlier this morning is all very small microquakes, probably under a 1.0 magnitude. Let's go ahead and check out the solar weather map where we got some things cooking. I mean, things are really getting crazy on the sun. An old sunspot that has made its way back around to the Earth side is providing us with a pretty awesome show, popping off a few low-level M flares, including an M2.2. In fact, that flare was crackling non-stop here for quite a while in the M category. The M2 did spike up here a little bit. Now we're looking at a little gradual decline of the solar flaring from that sunspot. And we'll see if this thing, it looks like it's kind of kicking back up here now within the last few minutes. So that's kind of on the crazy side. You know, an old sunspot there returning back in view to provide us with an awesome show. That's going to be this one here. It looks a little crazy. Far as the flare potential goes here, I can't really see on the on this one to check the dynamics of it, but just looking at that image and the consistent M flares that it's producing, there's no doubt that we could see an X flare possibility. We've already seen multiple M flares. All right, so that 15% chance stands a little low. Should be much higher than that with the X flare, possibly around 15% chance. But we'll see in the coming days as this kind of gives us a better view of the dynamics of that sunspot on the eastern limb out there. It's looking pretty crazy. That's all I can say. We got a little bit of a frequency distortion on the absorption map here with the high frequency radios being affected, it looks like. Communications and low frequency as well. Navigation systems. Yeah, right over the Southern California region. Off the coast of Mexico as well, it looks like. So we'll see how this affects Earth and the tectonic processes involved. Aside from any type of KP index or storming, that's subject to change, right? With all the activity kicking up there on the sunspot. Right now, it's going to be declining here over the next couple nights with just minimal chances of geomagnetic storming at the higher latitudes. KP index still sits around the 3. Therefore, we're seeing a little bit of the aurora amplification there on the dark side of the moon. The moon? No, the dark side of the Earth. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it pretty closely, folks. I think it's going to be a very, very busy weekend with all this unusual activity kicking off here. Like I say, just be on guard. No fear mongering. Just good to be alert and aware of what's going on in Southern California with the increase in movement here, specifically along the Pacific side of the plate boundary. I did a little study on this San Andreas fault zone, the southern segment, with an update last night prior to this activity. And hopefully I didn't speak something into existence here. Been about 300 years or so more since they believe the last full rupture or major rupture here along the southern segment of the San Andreas fault. And that kind of coincides with the 1700 Cascadia earthquake, right? The Cascadia earthquake back in 1700, 322 years. Southern section of San Andreas fault, 300 and something years. So I'm wondering if there's not some type of setup here where one could trigger the other and vice versa. So just something to think about. We're coming up on that yearly intervals. It's supposed to be, 140-year interval of the southern section of San Andreas fault. far as major ruptures go. But then again, we don't have that water adjustment down here to increase pressure on the fault zone. So who knows? We'll see what happens, all right? Go check it out if you didn't get a chance. Either way, be alert, stay on guard, folks, with this increased movement right along this area here where we've been expecting a big one, right? For quite some time. So just be prepared. Let's see what else we got, folks. I think that's about it. Live stream is coming up. Got to get it up and going. Hope everyone has a good day. We'll be back a little bit later tonight with a question and answer show, of course, here with Missy Mimi's. And we'll have a little fun tonight on the Friday night earthquake show. Chat you guys in. Have a good one.